Welcome. Hello, everybody. I'm Gloria Gilbert. I'm the Director of Sustainable Westford and the Westford Farmers Market. I'm here today to talk about our newest program at the Farmers Market called SNAP Bonus Bucks. And we're really excited to share our views about the help that the Bonus Buck program can do for Westford residents as well as the surrounding towns. With me today, I have three guests, and I'm pleased to introduce you all to Suzanne Wade. She's a minister with St. Mark's in Westford. We have Allison Christopher. She is a social worker with Westford. And we have Tim McLean with Buck Honda, who happens to be the largest individual contributor to the bonus program today. So first, for those that don't know about what SNAP is a federal program that is designed to help families of low income supplement their food budget and hopefully incentivize them to purchase healthier foods. The Bonus Buck program is new to the farmers market. And what that is, it started, let me give you a little history. Last year we started asking the 4 churches of Westford for contributions to fund a Bonus Buck program, which is related to SNAP. So last year, the farmers market, the Westford Farmers Market, was authorized to take food stamps. And being that there was disparity in health issues with the American food system, we knew that we wanted to try to incentivize people on food stamps to eat healthier and possibly come to the farmers market and spend their food stamp dollars. We wanted to create the incentive, which was the Bonus Buck program, to double the worth of this food stamp program. So that's when we went to the 4 churches of Westford, who I asked Minister Suzanne Wade, and she enthusiastically replied, "Great program, I love it, and if you run out of money, come back for more." So all of the churches really embraced the program. And so with that, I'd like to just open up the conversation to everybody just about how they know food stamps or the clients of food stamps, and if there is a need for this kind of a program within our community. So would you like to start with your experiences?
Absolutely. You know, a lot of people think that hunger is something restricted to places of deep poverty. But people rely on food stamps in occasions we wouldn't even think of it. After a job loss, after a divorce, anytime there's been an illness and income has been cut off, people are still struggling to keep their homes, pay their mortgage. Food stamps is one of those programs that lets them stretch their budget and tide them over in the middle of very difficult times. And you know, my experience is that everyone wants to feed their families healthy food. Everybody wants their children to have fresh fruits and vegetables. But when you have very little money for anything, one of the first things that gets cut are things like the fresh food from the farmers market. I thought the SNAP program and the Bonus Bucks program at the farmers market was a brilliant idea, because it allows people to stretch those SNAP dollars, those food stamp dollars, while also supporting our local farmers, which is such an important part of our local economy and our local food supply.
We are lucky to live in Westford, and because the average income is at least double what it is in our neighboring towns such as Lowell. I think we have a slide on the disparity between the amount of SNAP recipients that use SNAP in Westford versus Lowell. It's quite significant. It is right there on the screen. It's Westford has 284 households, believe it or not. And if you just look at the graph, I mean, you know, all of the towns have families that are in need, and Lowell in particularly is, you know, takes the lion's share, which is amazing. So even in our town of Westford, we still have some families that need. Allison, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I see in my role as the town social worker, I see a lot of families in the situations that Suzanne, you were just describing, that may have come into a very shocking and temporary hardship situation where they were not and could not have been prepared for the circumstances that they are currently in. And while SNAP is a really helpful program to be able to apply for in those circumstances, the amount of money that people get in SNAP dollars is not very high. So it's very dependent upon household size. And so when people apply, there are a bunch of different equations that are put into play by Department of Transitional Assistance based on whether it's a disabled or elderly household or a younger household with family. There are different guidelines. And the amounts that people can get change all the time. But the bottom line is the maximum for a month for a one-person household that got zero income is under $200 a month, which, you know, $50 a week for a person to eat who has no other means of buying food is not a lot of money. So I think that if there's a way to maximize those dollars and to allow people to spend some of the money on healthier foods than they might be able to get at the grocery store for that small amount of money, it sounds like it would be incredibly helpful. The other thing that we see is that there are people who rely on SNAP and have such low income that they also might need to visit the Westford Food Pantry to supplement their food budget there. And we have an extremely generous community in that way. We you know, we see so many donations to the food pantry, and the food pantry is so appreciative of that. But it's hard to keep things like vegetables available in a food pantry.
Actually, I went to the food pantry and I took a little tour.
Yeah.
It was amazing. The people that run that are meticulous. The organization is amazing. It's like they run it like a CEO of IBM. It was pretty impressive.
Yes.
But you're right, there is no place to store fresh fruits and vegetables.
They do have some refrigerator space, but it's limited refrigerator space. And even if you're refrigerating vegetables, they only stay good for a relatively short amount of time. So the more options people can have for where to obtain vegetables on a regular basis or fruits on a regular basis, while they might occasionally be able to get it at the food pantry, it's probably nowhere near what they want to be getting for their family's dietary needs. So
yeah, and another issue that surrounds this is a lot of the food that is donated, it is all canned, it is all boxed, it is all processed foods. And I think most of the, a lot of people are aware of that, all of the processed foods with the added, just so many added chemicals and preservatives and colorings and things that they actually don't even have to label. The way our system, American food system is, you don't have to label a lot of the chemicals that are getting put into this processed food. And statistically, it is the economically disadvantaged people that do have more chronic illnesses, and it's just so unfair,
I do want to give a shout out to the community gardens in Westford, who with St. Mark's has been growing vegetables for the food pantry. Last year, we were able to grow 500 pounds of fresh produce that the food pantry picks up every Thursday morning for distribution. But that's still a drop in the bucket. That's still, and a lot of that 500 pounds is zucchini.
I saw a lot of very large zucchinis. And Gaining Ground also out of Concord donates on a weekly basis during the summer fruits and vegetables that they have that are organically grown. So, there's a lot of generosity in the town and thoughtfulness about our community members who may be struggling at any given time. But I really do feel like the more options people have for where and how they can get these items, the better off we will all be.
Well, with 500 pounds of zucchini, has anyone developed a way of freezing some kind of zucchini recipe? I mean, it's hard to consume all of that at one time.
Frozen zucchini makes great bread.
Oh, wow.
You can grind, shred it, and freeze
Excellent.
it. Makes great bread later on.
Excellent.
Good tip.
So Tim, I would like to ask you, how is it that you became involved and became the highest contributor donator to the SNAP bonus buck program?
Well, these days I feel more blessed than anybody. Working hard and being able to go to work every day is kind of nice. The reason I did it is more to the question is the fact that, you know, I was one of those families. As a young child, my father had a heart attack when I was 2 years old. Became basically unhireable, unworkable. Then had a stroke by the time I was 13. So growing up in the dynamic of having nothing, and back then we didn't really have the food stamp program. You were, you know, it was a day-to-day living. The blessing I had, I was young enough, I really didn't know I was poor. But going to the refrigerator and finding it empty, it was commonplace. Makes it kind of tough looking back, but at the same time, if we as individuals and in corporations, you know, find the time to set aside, you know, a small donation, it can be weekly, you can have it drawn out of your check. It can be, you know, a donation that you save up for and do once a year. But these families really do need our help. And having the SNAP program and the availability of the bonus bucks, all that puts together just it's a Band-Aid to help these people through. Like you said, the $200 a month type of thing.
Maximum, yeah.
I mean, if anybody in this area had $200 a month to feed their family, you know, think about the dynamic. I mean, the real challenge would be is do it for a week, do it for a month. You know, try to get by on that little bit of money and see how you do. I mean, that's really the dynamic. Put yourself in their position. It's not an easy life. And when you're put into a situation that's temporary, okay, so you struggle a little bit, you get a little help from friends, you know, you go to the different food centers and things like that. You get through it. But having lived it for many years as a child, it's difficult. And, you know, when you're an adult and you look back at the dynamic of what you lived through, it really does affect you deep down. So I guess the challenge I would put forth is that anybody, you know, listening in and looking in, you know, the question is, okay, what can I do? You can do a lot with a little. You do it every day. And I really appreciate the hard work you do.
Thank you so much. I try to help where I can, but you know what you're saying is, what you're saying is so much more meaningful in the sense that you have lived it. I don't know that. I don't know that suffering. I don't know. I could take the challenge and I could live on food for $50 a week, and I could get by knowing that there is a relief, you know,
In a few weeks, yeah.
not a problem. So I don't understand that. I don't feel it. It's a totally different perspective. So I do appreciate you sharing your story with us. It's quite meaningful. So yeah, thank you about that.
Gloria, I'd just like to echo what Tim said about it doesn't take, you know, huge donations to make a real difference. When I first arrived at St. Mark's 5 years ago, inspired by Jesus' story of the feeding of the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish, I challenged St. Mark's to feed 5,000 people in the next year. And when I challenged them to do that, they said yes, mostly to humor the new priest. Nobody thought we could feed 5,000 people in a year. But we actually hit our goal 6 weeks early, through many, many small actions, through many small meals, small donations, growing food, making, having, canned good drives, all sorts of small ways that everybody was able to contribute to. The preschool had an S is for Soup Week, in which everybody brought soup in. And all of those things added up until there were 5,000 people in the greater Westford area who ate because of our year-long campaign.
Awesome.
And that's why I think it's so important to consider this, even though there are other resources, because many families need every single one of these resources in order to kind of make it by in the way that we would want to see people be able to eat. You know, you were saying when you were younger, you didn't have those kind of options, and you know, that you open a refrigerator that's empty, and some people in this town, some people on this panel perhaps have never experienced what it looks like for one day to have an empty refrigerator. So I think that knowing that there are so many people out there who are in situations similar to what you described, and knowing that they're right amongst us in our very own town, maybe not advertising themselves as being in that situation. And many of them are in that situation long term, as you described. You know, we have people that come in to do SNAP applications because something has happened right now and it is temporary, and that's great. But there are many people who are long-term disabled, living on very low SSI or SSDI incomes, and that this becomes a way of life. And it would be great if this way of life included fresh vegetables and being able to double the resources to get it, you know, throughout the summer.
So, you know, we're asking the general public if you would be interested in donating just a small amount to the Bonus Buck program. Like Minister Suzanne says, just very small amounts. Tim says, you know, once a week in your paycheck, a small deduction, that would be fantastic. So there's a little bit more to this story. The first year, we had asked the churches of Westford to please fund this program, and it was really successful. The SNAP program was, you know, picked up at the farmers market. We got some, you know, it's a new program, so we did get people using food stamps at the farmers market. We also then wrote a grant, USDA Food and Nutrition, and they actually, we got letters of support, Suzanne and many other churches, and I think your department also. The USDA actually picked up the grant, and they're funding the SNAP program. So there is someone at the farmers market for the 4-hour duration and someone to tally all the numbers and whatnot. So it is growing, and we do see, it is interesting, the people that come to the farmers market that use SNAP, most of them, I would say, are from other communities.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, you're probably going to get you know, a lot of runoff from every direction. The truth is that, you know, coming from my background as a family unit, you know, having, you know, our whole family was 10 people, if you can imagine, and having access to having just fresh vegetables and food. I mean, we had neighbors and everybody else helping out. It was a great community, but the dynamic of being able to utilize, you know, the federal program, get help now, and then be able to expand on it, you know, using your program, is more or less priceless for a lot of these kids and families. It helps them grow and it helps them have the nutrition they need. You know, they don't look for it. They don't even know it's there, but just the fact that they're able to just go out with their parents and go shopping, the parent to have the pride to be able to provide this for their family is amazing. And without the support that you provide, or that individuals provide and corporations step forward and help you out, the outreach is going to be limited. And that's what the real danger is here. Is you want to be able to, you know, people think, you know, well, the farmers have the food. Well, they work hard for it.
Yeah, they do.
And the fact that they're able to step up and help the program out and support it, I think, is amazing. And they're a part of the community that's always been stand up and always been right there. I'm a direct representation of what, you know, the whole dynamic of the community can provide, because we did get help locally. There were a lot of, you know, individual families and farms and people growing things that would just drop them by, and I thought that was great.
Awesome.
And that's what this reminded me of. But what it also does is without the help of the general public, you know, having your hands tied and being limited, it just makes it a lot more difficult.
Well, you kind of underscore the truth is we're running this program because we have federal funds to run it for 2 years. So for 2016 season at the farmers market, as well as the complete season of 2017 farmers market, we will be running the program. But all of the success here really depends on public participation, individual donors, and the generosity of even corporations, if they would even consider funding these type of programs. So it isn't sustainable without the help of people contributing. And we want to ask for, donations certainly, but as well as getting the word out to food stamp recipients that come to our farmers market
It's there
and get
for
the
you.
bonus bucks. I mean, it will stretch your dollar, and I know in this generation, this time period, the amount of junk food proliferates, and I can only imagine that if I were on a very, very limited budget, I know that I would be reaching for the chips and the junk food just because it's so much more satisfying than real food. And the disparity is a social justice issue. You're just going to grab volume versus real nutritional food. So if you care about those type of things, I would just ask you to think and please consider our program for donating.
Yeah. It's always true that macaroni and cheese in a box is cheaper than
And
a
it's
couple
good.
pounds of apples, and it fills the belly, and kids like it.
It's salt, it's sugar, and fat, and I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, I sometimes watch families, come to the farmers market, and I watch kids getting excited about the apples or the peaches will come in, and can I have a fresh peach? And if I'm there saying, well, I've got $50 to spend to feed us for the whole week, and the peaches are $3.50 a pound, and that's only going to be 2 peaches. I'm making those calculations. Being able to double those dollars makes it so much easier for a parent to be able to say, yes, absolutely, you can have a peach.
Makes it easier for choices too, because you're not making fillers. You're not making the rice to fill the belly. And it's funny because you think about it. We're in 2016. Like, those decisions, to me, aren't supposed to happen. And that's one of the main reasons to get involved here, because in our day and age, with all the technology and all the incomes and the money and the things that this area produces, we shouldn't have this problem. And again, just to stress it, having SNAP available to these families, it's an immense help.
Yeah.
And it should be just a beginning, because this should be able to go so much further. And with the help from others, it should be able to take off.
I know some of the statistics that are so alarming. Just even it's agribusiness and PR and marketing, but they do target. There are a lot more fast food convenience stores in lower income, depressed neighborhoods. It's just the way capitalism is working these days, which is sad, but.
We are so fortunate here in Westford to
Yes, we are.
have the farmers market, I'm so grateful for the work you've been doing to make sure that our neighbors, either both in Westford and in our surrounding communities, can take advantage of this wonderful resource that we have, and not have to choose between going local and being able to come to the farmers market, knowing they can afford to buy the food that they really want to feed their families.
Westford is incredibly generous, and we're just asking you to think about it and dig deep. And is there anything else you would like to add? Because we have a couple more minutes and we can close. You guys good?
I think we're good.
All right. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we appreciate it. Please consider the Bonus Bucks Now program, and just know that 100% of your money is actually going directly to the SNAP participants, and I can guarantee that. So for those skeptics that don't believe nonprofits do efficient work, I will vouch for it. So thank you for tuning in. Have a good day.